Hey guys, welcome to Tables and Tales with your host, Michelle Marby Davies. The kitchen is my sacred space. I love being in here and having conversations about life, love, and everything in between. So on this podcast, I'm going to be having some amazing conversations with phenomenal guests on topics that we can all resonate with in some way. I hope you enjoy it. See you soon. So I am super excited about today's episode because everywhere you look, from the left to the right, on the Twitter, on the TikToks, on the Instawebs, it's all about relationships. Somebody is telling you how to get a man, how not to lose your man, how to behave, be more feminine, all the things. Like relationships is like hot cash dollar currency. So I said, let's talk about it today, but let's talk about it with someone who I feel has so much wisdom, knowledge, insight. Every time I hear this woman talk, every time I hear Stacy talk, I'm like, woo, girl.
Listen.
I just want to have a conversation with you because you just bring the things that feel quite abstract, you just bring them to life in a way that's so understandable. So I'm super excited to have you here today. Stacy is a sought after practitioner, speaker, and a mentor with well over a decade of experience. She's the founder of Renewed Today, which is an organization that offers humanistic and cognitive techniques to improve mental health and well-being. In a nutshell, she gonna help get you together. In a nutshell, right? She's all about merging mental health and faith, which I love. And to me, she's just someone who speaks in such an open, honest, and captivating way. And I love that. I love people who can just make it simple, make it understandable. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. I'm super, super excited. Okay, so before we get into talking about all the relationships, I wanted to run through some rapid fire with you. So I have a couple of questions. You ready to answer them, girl?
I don't know.
No, you got this. Okay, so first question. What are you picking? Curry goat, jerk chicken, or stew chicken?
Woo, jerk chicken.
Oh, okay. Are you rice and peas with your jerk chicken?
Yes.
Are you particular about your rice and peas? Because I know there's some people that...
Okay, for me, realistically, you just pick out the peas. I need the whole coconut. I need the whole seasoning, but just without the red kidney.
That's so funny. I didn't know. Would you prefer is it gunga peas?
Gunga peas.
Gunga peas. Okay. Yeah. You want nothing.
I would just pick out the peas.
Not even the rice and peas that they did on the BBC.
No,
with the green peas.
No.
Okay. Okay. Second one. Apple crumble. Are you having it with custard or ice cream?
Custard.
Custard?
Yeah, it's got to be, and cold custard, by the way.
Stop, please.
It's got to be cold custard.
Girl, what?
It's got to be cold custard, guys. Yeah, I'm not here for the hot crumble and the hot custard.
So the crumble is hot, but the custard is cold.
Cold.
When you're having cake, do you have cold custard as well?
Yes.
Girl, can we all just stretch our hands and say a prayer for Stacy? Because I thought I was going to be judged when with cake. Don't knock it till you try it. Or any dessert. Custard, then the dessert, and then you put a little bit of ice cream on top.
Oh no.
Sounds crazy, but the custard and the ice cream are basically made of the same thing, so you're fine. No? Okay, girl, I guess not. Okay, which goes in first when you are having cereal, the milk or the cereal?
Milk.
See, I knew you were good people. I just needed to ask you the question to know.
It's got to be the milk.
It's got to be the milk. Are we having the milk hot or cold?
This just depends on how I feel.
Girl.
Some days it's warm, it goes.
You be having cold milk?
Yeah.
It's not a shock to your system?
Nah.
Oh,
In the summers, sometimes I could go on cereal for the whole day, and at some point it might just be cold.
Cereal slaps. Do you know, sometimes I worry about having kids because I'm like, I have to cook meals for them. Whereas sometimes I come home and I literally just have cereal for dinner.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and it works.
Will they be okay with that?
They'll be fine.
Okay, girl.
My brother's lived on cereal for a long time.
Okay, we love it. Okay. Final question. If you had to choose one meal to eat for the rest of the year, what would it be? Like we're in February and someone says you can only have this one meal for the rest of the year. You can't change it. It has to be the same meal. What's it going to be?
If I say like a surf and turf, because then I get a bit of the red meat and the nuts. You know, I would just have to say a surf and turf.
You're like, let me combine both.
Oh, come on.
Okay,
yeah,
that's smart.
I can live with that.
Don't work hard, work smart, and you definitely did. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, well, I mean, Stacey, you know, because you were at the event where we launched this. We have got the journal, The Gift of Self-Discovery, which is a guided journal. I'm going to plug that in there.
Come on.
So I thought it would be fun to get you to pick a number. I don't know if we should do from 1 to 50 or 1 to 100.
Ooh.
Let's do from 1 to Between 1 to 75.
1 to 75.
Hold on, let's see. No,
Yes,
I think you might be on the ball. Because 75 is in the section of relationships.
Oh, Lord.
Wow. Okay, girl. I mean, okay, so question 75 says, are there any relationships you would like to improve or deepen within the next 3 months? If so, list them and the ways you could make this happen. Maybe you just pick one. And
Just
let us
one?
know. Yeah.
I think it will be with my mother.
Ah, how come?
I think because we are much more mature, much more evolved in where we are in life. So we can learn from each other in a different way. Instead of it was much more, because she's older and I'm younger, I don't really have the experience or the wisdom. But now that I've come into my own a little bit, let's converse and learn.
I love that.
So I think, definitely my mum.
I love that. If you could say there's one thing that you take away from your mum in terms of who she is as a person, one thing you admire, what would it be?
It's got to be faith. It's got to be her faith. She is a woman of faith and radical faith at that. She doesn't care about what society is saying. She doesn't really care about what tradition is. It's very much her personal relationship and revelation of who God is. That's how she moves.
Oh, I love that.
And I love that about her.
I love that. Okay, girl. I mean, that was rapid fire.
Oh, shake it up.
So we warmed up, we ready to go. And like I said, I'm super excited to talk to you about relationships because, you know, I feel like generally information is power. Like sometimes it can feel like we have information overload, but I genuinely do feel the more you are equipped with even being able to name things, like knowing what something is in terms of how to identify the thing you're struggling with, and like you're able to put the pieces together, it's able to equip you to operate in a better way when it comes to relationships. So I'm excited to sit and talk to you because between the attachment styles, the femininity, the divine energy on the TikToks, I'm like, please, let me talk to somebody who can actually just break it down in a way that we can understand. So yeah, super excited to get into this with you. So, I mean, before we tackle relationships, based on what you know about yourself right now, because you know, all of this is kind of focused on self-discovery, but based on what you know about yourself right now, what 3 things would you say are true about who you are? Like, who do you know yourself to be right now, based on the Stacy that's here with us?
Right now, I am most definitely compassionate. I am a woman of compassion. I think because of what I have experienced, I hold a lot of empathy for others.
Oh, I love that.
So definitely a woman of compassion. Motherhood is big in my life right now. It's a big part of my identity. I've got 2 kids, 15-year-old and a 3-year-old. So motherhood, I'm in my motherhood bag right now.
Yes, wow.
So compassion, motherhood, and I guess my spirituality as a Christian, that's a big part of what my truth is.
Do you feel like those 3 things that you named about yourself, would you say that was true like a year ago, 3 years ago, or do you feel like things have kind of evolved with time?
Things have definitely evolved with time. Compassion, I think since becoming a counsellor in that mental health space, I've had the opportunity to hold space for myself. That allows me now to hold space for other people. So my compassion, my empathy, that has evolved over time. And I think in terms of my spirituality, has definitely evolved. You know, the Christian that I was at 19 is definitely not the Christian that I am now at 35.
I love that you, because we were talking about that just before we started filming, just in terms of allowing yourself grace to evolve and being okay with the version of you that existed yesterday or the week before is going to be different. And sometimes it's like life causes that change, or you just decide that this way of being doesn't serve me anymore, and that's okay. So I love that you mentioned that. There's a quote I love that I saw by Toby Rachel. Shout out to you, Toby. She said, "You can only meet someone as deeply as they have met themselves." Would you agree with this?
Of course. Yeah. Most definitely. I think we could go all spiritual. We talk about deep calls onto the deep. But the reality is that, as I said before, if you haven't learned to be compassionate towards yourself, non-judgmental, you're able to accept who you are and who you are not, right? How then can you have that same energy, mirroring space for someone else?
What helps with being non-judgmental with yourself or compassionate? Like when you meet yourself and say you find things that you don't like? Because on one end of the script, people would say, oh, you're coddling people, you're being too soft, like just get people to toughen up. What does being compassionate towards yourself look like?
I think being compassionate is all about handling yourself with care. Being very caring towards yourself, being kind towards yourself. And I think also recognizing that you are a work in progress.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as perfection.
Yeah.
Right? So what is this standard that I'm holding myself against, right? Where am I holding myself hostage?
Wow.
Because I think when you start to hold yourself hostage, it's very hard for you to see anyone else without the bars.
Oh, girl, shit.
Come on.
She put a drop. Okay, so we need to have an offering basket on this table generally moving forward, because you don't need to send the offering. Cash up. Just be sending the offering.
Don't really laugh.
Not the bars, sorry. This is just me.
No, but it's the truth. And I think a lot of us, the reason why deep calls to deep is really important is because in relationships, I need to know where I end and you begin.
But a lot of the times people are trying to just merge into one being.
And then you end up projecting on each other. When you want to talk about yourself and what you're experiencing, I'm getting offended. I'm being defensive. It's like, hold on, is that an attack? What are you trying to say?
Yeah.
No, that's where you end and I begin.
Ooh.
So when you hold space, when you have that level of depth, someone can bring it. And you can separate the two.
Oh, I love that. Oh, okay, girl, we're not even 15 minutes in and you're dropping all the gems. Okay, throughout your journey, what would you say has helped with meeting yourself, like coming to know yourself? What's helped you?
I think, obviously, as a counsellor in training, you have to be counselled, right? So over a decade of having my own counselling and therapy gives me an opportunity to meet with myself.
Yeah.
And in my maturation of that, I now hold space by waking up a bit earlier in the morning before the kids are awake, checking in with myself. Like, Stacey, how are you today?
I love that.
A big question I always have for myself and I've taught my clients is ask yourself, what do you need in this moment? Right? So when I wake up in the morning, I'm reflective. It's like, what do I need in this moment? Sometimes it is prayer. Sometimes it is journal. Sometimes it might be a stretch, some fresh air, something healthy to eat.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're able to meet with yourself and give yourself that opportunity, I think that has really helped me.
I love that, because it kind of reminds me of, again, like when people struggle with the concept of like self-discovery or self-care, I always think, how would you typically love someone else, or what would you give to someone else that you care about? And figuring out how to do that for yourself is a great practice sometimes, because if you come in and I care about you, I want to know, like, what do you need in the, do you want water, do you want coffee, do you, something as basic as that, even in terms of having people in your space. So it's learning to give that to yourself as well. And I think sometimes people struggle with that mentally. Okay, so Stacey, I actually believe that relationships and community are a great tool for self-discovery, but we often hear the advice that people should take time out to get to know themselves on their own before they get with someone else. So the whole, sometimes like you hear people trying to encourage, I think women often in particular, and they say like, if you don't learn to love yourself, how will someone else ever love you?
Yeah.
I don't know, like what would you say are the top, first of all, do you agree with that? But then also, what would you say are maybe the top 3 things that people can do to get to know themselves? Like what's a crucial thing people should learn about themselves before getting into a relationship?
Do I agree? I think, I definitely agree. I'm very big on you don't know yourself on your own.
Right.
Like, there's only so much you can discover without relationship.
Okay, so you agree that relationships are a tool for self-discovery as well?
Definitely.
Okay, nice.
Most definitely, because in your room by yourself, you think that you're this Michelle.
Girl.
And as soon as you end up in a relationship, you're like, oh, I didn't know you were that way, Michelle.
I am learning that. I'm like, there's so many things I thought I had worked out on my own. And then in trying to be with people, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize like that was still an issue. Like, it's like you can practice certain things on your own, but you only really see it in motion with someone else.
That's right.
So I agree with that. Yeah.
So community and relationships is a great way for us to get to know ourselves. And I think 3 key areas to focus on are these people making me feel seen?
Ooh.
Do they make me feel heard? And am I safe?
Yeah.
Am I safe with this person?
Yeah.
Am I safe in this community? Am I safe in this environment? When you come away from that person or when you come away from that environment, notice how you feel. Do you feel drained? Do you feel like you had to hide parts of who you were? Could you show up authentically? Right? So these three areas, I think, in relationships and community is really important to notice.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And then if you had to say to someone, I don't know, maybe like a 20-something-year-old, any age actually, someone is saying like, what do I need to know about myself before? Do you think there are things you have to know about yourself before you get into a relationship, or is there just room to kind of figure it out once you're in there?
No, I definitely think self-discovery, a bit of exploration is important. And I think, you know, just like historians who are excavating and digging up old bones, right? Sometimes you need that professional support. You need that, you know, historian that knows about this particular bone that you're trying to extract, right? And look at. I think if you're in your 20s, therapy is a great place to explore. And find things about yourself, because you want to know that not only are you safe for yourself, but I'm also safe for others, right?
So you can go even if something isn't, like there's no crisis going on. We can sign up. Yeah, I agree. So, okay, so therapy is a great tool to come to learn about yourself before being with someone. Are there any other tools that you would recommend? Like, I don't know much about myself.
I think just get involved in community. Join a gym, a class, pottery, painting, something that you can show up to consistently, that are able to reflect back to you who you are and what they see and what they notice. If you're someone that moves around all the time, it's very hard to build relationships that can reflect back to you who you really are.
I agree. I feel like the same way I speak about the fact that you can learn from any corporate job about entrepreneurship, you can learn how to be a better entrepreneur from many 9-to-5s. I feel the same about self-discovery and life in general. I feel like if you make the choice, the conscious decision to remain curious about who you are as a person, you can learn about yourself in any space. You can learn about yourself whilst you're at home, the way you manage your space. You can learn about it in relationships and community and friendships, like you said. You can learn about it from business endeavors. Like by the time you've tried to run a business or a side hustle of some sort, you thought you were a particular type of person, and then you engage in that activity and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the way I am. Or even in a group project, you're like, oh, this is like, it's like doing what was it called before you went to uni? When you did the UK, was it UCAS? Or the form, and then you would write that, oh, I love to work in teams. Oh, wow. I'm a team player. And then you get to uni and you're like, I don't want to sit in a team again. I don't want to do it. Literally, you learn about yourself once you're actually in the situation. But if you just remain constantly curious, I think it's a great opportunity to have insight into who you are. So
that is my favorite word.
Yeah.
Curious. Remain curious. I brought that to your last event. I think it's so important because when you're curious about yourself, you'll become curious about others.
Yes.
You know, why is Michelle the way that she is? Why does she say that? Why does she show up like that?
Yeah.
Instead of being judgmental, you know, you're more accepting because you're curious.
Yeah.
How did we get here, Michelle? How did our relationship get here? What happened?
Oh, girl, you asking the hard questions. Do you encourage people to ask those difficult questions when it comes to relationships? But what if it feels scary? Like, how do you... Because I find sometimes the concept of having very open and honest conversations in relationships, especially, let's say, like dating relationships, getting to know people, there's this idea that it should be like romantic and airy-fairy, which I don't dispute. But I think sometimes it comes at the expense of having the difficult conversations. Like, if someone is struggling to do that, what would you say to them? Like,
I think the power of relationships flourish in authenticity. And me being authentic doesn't mean I'm only going to come with the airy and the fairy. If you want to know all of me, there's going to be parts of me that are a bit dark, that might not be acceptable by society or by your own standards, right? Where do I go with that?
Because it's so easy to try and hide that. I know from personal experience, I've had to get to a place where I'm like, look, this is me. This is my madness, and this is what's normal about me. This is what I feel slightly ashamed about, but I have to bring that to the table, because if not, I'm allowing you to fall for a version of myself that doesn't actually exist.
Definitely.
And I think it takes a lot of courage to show up in that way, because you have to be willing to be yourself even with the knowledge that this could cost you that person or that relationship.
Yeah.
But the other place where it's like, I'm then pretending to be something so I can keep you, it's not a place I enjoy being in.
Well, you're betraying yourself.
Nah, girl, you gonna speak on that?
When you have to betray yourself to maintain a relationship, that relationship's not for you.
Ooh, Stacy, what does betraying yourself look like?
I think on a very foundational level, I always say to people, if what I am thinking and what I'm saying and what I'm doing do not correspond in a relationship, then I'm betraying myself.
It's not matching up. It's not like, wow, that's good.
If I'm not in alignment with myself, with my core values and what I believe, and I can't show up authentically, this relationship isn't for me. And again, there's different kinds of relationships, right? And I'm mainly maybe talking to relationships where you want to pursue intimacy, whether that's within friendship or a romantic level, right? I'm not talking about your acquaintances. They don't really need to know much about you, right? But if you're trying to have a relationship that has some form of depth, you need to be able to be authentic.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Okay, so I guess based on your experience, engaging with others around their mental health, what are some of the myths you often observe people internalizing when it comes to relationships? Because so much of our framework around relationships comes from the things we take in, whether that's from the media or from family or things that people say, right? Say to us, like quotes that are popular around relationships. What would you say are some of the most common myths? Like, this is not reality, but you see people internalizing that.
Yeah, I think we had a conversation about this prior. Yeah. So if you see somebody evolving, it doesn't mean a betrayal. Right, because sometimes we're like, well, my friend, she's switched up. She's not even. She's not the same anymore, right? And I think, how could she? Where does she think she's going? Right, and even within ourselves, when we no longer think the way that we thought when we were 19, it doesn't mean that we're a fraud. It doesn't mean that we're betraying ourselves. It just means that we're evolving.
I love that, because I think sometimes, again, when it comes to relationships, especially when people are talking about marriage, there's often the phrase that like, oh my God, expect them, like, could you be with this person if they were to never change? So you're so focused on this person remaining the same that sometimes you don't make room in your mind for the fact that this person is going to evolve and they are going to change, and can I deal with that?
It's so funny. Sorry, I'm just thinking about nature in itself. Even a rock that doesn't change, weather will change it.
Wow.
Right? So even if someone comes in and they're in their relationship and they're that rock, they're stubborn, they're hard, they're not going to change, right? The atmosphere, the environment, the engagement is still going to change them in some way. And we have to be able to recognize that in our relationships and work with it accordingly.
Oh, I love that. Oh, a rock, like I'd never thought about that, because that's not even something that has movement in and of itself or what's the word I'm looking for? Autonomy. But literally, like you said, life will cause changes in that thing itself. So, wow, that's true. Did you have any myths yourself when it came to relationships, like the way you thought about relationships?
Yes, definitely. I think recognizing that two things can be true at the same time is something, because I think for me, coming from a Jamaican household, if your mum says something, that's the law. She's always right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Right? So even if I came with my own opinion, it's like, oh, no, child, this is what you will be doing. And sometimes what she's coming with is tradition, right? She herself might not even know where it's come from, right? But when you grow up in that environment, you second guess yourself and you maybe seek others, or I always sought my mum for validation. If my mum agreed with it, then it's right, right? But as you evolve, as you grow in yourself and in your core beliefs, you recognize, hold on a second, how my mum experiences life is fine and that's great and it works for her. But how I experience life, even though it's completely different, is also valid. So both of us can hold essence. Both of us can hold depth. Both can hold truth in that moment, right? And I think a lot of us, we think if that person is experiencing something different to us, it must mean that my experience is wrong.
Or they're wrong.
Right? Yeah. Oh, that can't be right. What they're doing cannot be right. No, but They're authentic to them. Let me be authentic to me.
Girl, you're gonna preach. Oh. Okay, based on what you know about yourself right now in terms of doing the work of self-discovery, what do you know you need now, and how does it differ from what you previously thought?
What do I know I need now that differs? I think community.
Okay.
I think community. I think because I grew up in a very tight-knit family, it was very much all I need is me, myself, and my 5 siblings and you know, my parents. That's it. We're good to go, because we have, as immigrants, you know, we've struggled coming to the country. I got my parents working 2-3 jobs and they're dragging us with them as kids. You know, we're going to clean Wembley Stadium, we're hoovering with our mum.
The sacrifice.
So you see the sacrifice, and it's like, well, I don't need anybody else. We can do it together, but we need community. We need community. I need community.
How has community impacted you?
I think when I had surgery last year, February, and I was struggling in my motherhood, in my relationships, I was trying to do it all in my most vulnerable state. And one of my girlfriends was like, if you had told me, I would have dropped you to the airport. If you had told me, I could have kept your daughter. If you had said, and all of a sudden, all these resources in communities.
It was always there, yes.
It was always there.
It's just leaning into it, because I think that's a big thing for me. I think trying to be bad all by myself and, you know, I've got it, don't worry. I forget sometimes that I can actually lean into my community and allow them to serve and love on me, and even discover more about who they are, because as they practice, you know, their love languages and things like that, like there is room for them to grow into to more of who they are. So I love that. Okay, so on the internet, on the TikToks, on the Twitters, there's so much about attachment style. I'm just attached, attachment theory, the way you want to love, your trauma from childhood. I mean, I'm definitely learning now that literally everything is linked, even if you don't want to call it trauma, your childhood experience. I like, my eyes are open currently. I'm like, oh, Michelle. This is a reflection of your deepest beliefs, right? What are your thoughts generally when it comes to like attachment styles and all the things?
I think when it comes to an overemphasis on theories and models and these are the things, I'm just like, no, because everybody's looking to diagnose themselves through Dr. Google, and it's just a shambles.
Dr. TikTok.
Oh, Dr. TikTok, right? So I'm not big on labels. But I always say that our childhood experiences have most definitely created a foundation for our adulthood, right? Because we're not, I always say we're big kids. It's not when I hit 18 that all of a sudden the slate is clean and I start again because I'm an adult. No, that person who I was at 5, at 7, at 8, I brought them with me along the journey with me. So I always tell people to check in with that child. Check in.
Because I did read someone share something in a book where they said your primary love experience goes with you wherever you go. And I'm like, wow, that's so true. Like, but because it's a different environment. So say like you're looking at your family relationship and then you're looking at a romantic partner, like you almost think, oh, I'm going to separate the two. Like the way I would be with my spouse doesn't have anything to do with the way I experienced love as a child.
But I think, you know, just taking a tree, for example, okay, you as a seed, you're planted in this soil. Your family is that soil. Your childhood experiences is that soil. And some way, wherever you are pulling the nutrients, the water, whatever you need, you're pulling it from
It's going to bear fruit at some point.
It's going to bear fruit at some point.
I always say, like, nothing that is buried ever goes away. Like, it's going to, at some point, the pressures of life or the nutrients, like you say, like, it's going to, it's going to grow. It's going to bear fruit in your marriage or when you're mothering or, you know, being a parent. So completely agree. Okay, so for me, I know that I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like coming into my 30s. I be triggered, girl. I be walking around like, pow, pow, pow. It's a child, but I just be triggered, right? So when it comes to being triggered, like what would you say are some best practices for managing? Like you can now identify, you can say like, oh, this behavior or this response from someone else makes me feel like this, right? But then what would you say are best practices for managing your emotions or your response when it comes to being in that state? Like,
I think when it comes to triggers, it's important to, once you've recognized the signs or the patterns or what that particular thing is, you can actually plan for it.
Okay. Oh.
You can create a whole care plan around a particular trigger. Because I know that when this person says this, or when I go into this family, this is how I leave. And this is how I'm going to plan for it. Some of us just want our triggers to take us out.
Hold on, I love this. Wait. Because I do the same. I have like an emotional wellness toolkit. Like when I'm feeling down, I know like the 5 things I can pull from that will make me feel better. Whether that's like journaling, dancing, in this kitchen. I literally be having a dance. But like I have things that I pull from. But to think about that for trigger, I don't know.
Oh yes, you can create a whole care plan for yourself, because in that moment you're still vulnerable. I think as you get older and as you become familiar with that trigger, I recognize you from afar. I know how to deal with you. You're in a better place to manage that trigger, right? But in the moment where you're still vulnerable, you're still learning, you're still trying to figure it out. Take care of yourself.
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
Take care of
and
yourself.
So practical. You see, this is what I mean. I love the practicality in terms of just how you break things down. I have to talk to you forever.
And just something as simple as having a care box, right? Pictures, videos, movies, foods.
Because that then puts the power back into, in hearing you talk, it's like it puts the power back into my hands. I don't then have to depend on like this person managing the trigger for me or making me feel better.
That's right. Oh, I can meet my own needs.
Not you finna preach. Oh, I love this. Oh, I love talking to you, like I've said. I mean, final question before we head off. If you could put something on a billboard for everyone to see that was to do with relationships or just something you feel like people knew or understood better, like what would it be? What would be on the billboard?
Oh, definitely relationship is not a destination.
Oh, okay, girl. Oh, would you care to expand, girl?
It is most definitely a journey. Ooh. I think once people get into a relationship, it's like, I've made it.
Yeah.
I've arrived.
Yeah, I've got my badge on.
I'm in this relationship. Yeah. I got my bestie, right? No, now the journey starts.
Damn, girl.
You know, now where are we going?
Now we got to do the work.
Now you've got to
do the work. In the words of Kim Kardashian, get up and work. My God.
To do the work. So definitely relationships are not the destination. And personally, because of what I've experienced, those that know my story recognize I've been through divorce.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if relationship was the destination for me, I would have been dead by now. Because when I divorced, when that relationship, when that marriage ended, I would have ended. But I recognize that there's many routes, many ways to one place to engage in these different relationships. So yeah, relationship is not the destination, girl.
God, I love that. You just be dropping gems. I love listening to you talk, and I cannot wait for people to hear more of what you have to share. If they want to find you, where can they go? Where are they looking?
On Instagram and Instagram alone, because you know I'm not like you, Marby. I'm not this tech savvy right now.
Tech savvy? I don't even know how to update my iPhone. Apple, please stop sending iOS updates every 5 seconds. I don't know what I'm doing, but girl.
So right now you can find me on Instagram at Stacy Gacheru, and everything is there. Link in my bio.
Girl, we love it. I cannot wait for you to share. Before we started recording, Stacey was sharing with me some of what she's got planned for the year. And you guys, you need to stay locked and loaded. But Stacey, thank you so much for coming. I've loved talking to you. I love listening to you share. Girl, I might just have to invite you back, but you know, you can't say no. Please don't say no.
Never.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.